This is Michelle Rayburn with Indie Author Blueprint, and today I'm bringing you From First Draft to Finished Book, a mini workshop on what comes next. If you've participated in Novel November, or you've done a marathon of writing your first draft of something, or maybe you've been working on something for a long time and you have that first draft ready right now, you are sitting there with a written first draft. It may be messy if you did it fast, but it's done. First of all, congratulations to you, because that is no small accomplishment to get a first draft done. But now comes the question every indie author faces. What happens next? Maybe you already have a publishing plan in place. Before you rush out and do that, though, before you upload your manuscript to KDP or Ingram Spark or whatever you're going to do, there are some things you have to think about that can make or break your book's professionalism, and that's the preparation phase. In this little podcast mini workshop, I'll walk you through the essential steps to get your book ready for publication, mostly getting that manuscript ready. We're not talking about the design part here, but all the little things you need to do to the manuscript to be ready for publication, from front and back matter, gathering endorsements, deciding on a foreword or not a foreword, polishing the little details, all the things that help your book to stand out. Now, this isn't about perfection. It's really about preparation and moving from the creative to the strategic thinking as you transition from the writer hat to the publisher hat. Let's start with the first thing we need to think about, the after draft pause. When you get to the end of writing out that first draft, the temptation is to keep going. Just launch right into fixing typos, making revisions, starting the formatting right away, perhaps. But before you do, I encourage you to pause. You are going to hire a professional editor if you are publishing your book, but there is something that happens in between finishing and the editing stage. And this is a valuable stage in your process. First of all, I encourage you to take a short break. Give yourself a little vacation. I call this like the simmering time or the marinating time. This is where I let my manuscript sit for a little bit. It doesn't have to be super long. For me, sometimes just a couple days is all it takes, but I need the perspective to be able to look at it clearly. First of all, there's a lot of times that I don't even like it very much because there's either so much work to be done or I've done so much work already I don't even want to see it anymore. But let's just think of some of the things that would be on your checklist. First, stepping away, letting your mind reset just a little bit. After you've let it rest a little bit, then you need to do some pivots in your mindset. Writing is the creative process, the storytelling, and as the indie author, you wear all the hats. And I often am working with clients who have me do their editing and then I'm doing some design. And I explain to people that I have to take off my editing hat when I'm getting to that design phase because I don't want to get distracted by looking at the words or looking for typos. I'm thinking creatively. And so for me, there are many hats. After the writing and storytelling, then I'm thinking about the marketing, the strategic, and then the publishing. And you would be hiring perhaps an editor, perhaps hiring a designer, but you're overseeing those processes. So you're wearing those hats, even if you're not the person who's actually doing all of that work. Especially in the editing, you're going to wear an editing hat when you get the edits back from your editor. And you're going to have to process all of that and make some decisions about yes or no on the suggestions you've received from your editor. So you have to shift your mindset from this creative process to the publishing process, which is more strategic. There will be specific things then you're thinking about, like bonus materials. Are there graphics? Are there companion projects that I'm going to do with this? Am I going to write articles? Am I going to have interactive places I can send people, especially in nonfiction? I can send people to download a worksheet that I've perhaps created, or in fiction, maybe there's something interactive you come up with the storyline. And so you're thinking about some of those pieces that are a little more into the marketing and how people might interact with the story in a deeper way. You also have to think about the other content that goes into your book. And I want to focus on this for a few minutes here because what happens to me often is I receive a book project from somebody for editing, but I notice they're missing all of the front and back matter. It just begins at the introduction or chapter 1. And the author hasn't really thought about what goes on the copyright page, the dedication, if there's going to be one, the acknowledgments, the author bio. None of those pieces are in there. And a lot of indie authors forget that they're in charge of putting all that in there too. There isn't a publisher going, did you want to include anything here? So you have to think about that. So when that book is finished, now is the time to think about the front matter, the pages that come before chapter 1. Whatever you include in the front matter could set the tone. It could give the readers context before they reach your words. That's because there are some additional pieces you might want to put in there. So first off, in the front matter, you have a title page, you have the subtitle, your author name, and an imprint if you have one. Then you have a copyright page where your ISBN goes, all of the notifications about rights, and if you're publishing in the Christian realm, you have some notifications about scripture versions you've used. You have notifications here about how this is not medical advice, this is not counseling, whatever fits your particular audience. Obviously, your author name and the publishing year goes there. So the copyright page is something you fill out and you have it prepped and ready to go into your book. If you're doing a dedication, it's obviously optional, but you want to think of something that's meaningful. Table of contents. Now, this is essential for nonfiction, and you're not going to have a table of contents in a print version of fiction. And the table of contents for the ebook will be created in that ebook creation process. But even though in Word you can use certain headings and pull a table of contents in, I strip all of that away when I'm doing the typesetting. I don't have any of that stuff in there because it really screws up my InDesign. So I always encourage authors to have a table of contents because it helps me to see what they want there. Some people want it to say chapter 1 and then the title, or some just want the numeral 1. Also, some want to include a little blurb. For certain nonfiction books, it's really nice to have the title of the chapter and then a 1 or 2 sentence blurb that explains what that chapter's about. That's really helpful for people who go to browse your book, especially when they can do the look inside and they only see the table of contents and then maybe part of the first chapter on the look inside. But if you show them the table of contents in that front part where they're looking and they see a description, it really helps them to know what your book is about. So with certain books, I've encouraged people to do that. I think that's helpful. If you're going to have a foreword written by somebody else, that will go in there. If you have a preface, which sometimes that's you explaining something, it's a little different than the introduction, but it might be explaining something that the reader needs to know. If you're compiling someone else's work as the editor, you might write a preface that comes before the content that you've compiled. And then an introduction is there. I tend to actually call the introduction something else. I just incorporate it in. It might not be chapter 1, but it might be a note from the author or something like that. There's a reason for that. I do, because I've actually asked readers and they say they don't read the front matter. So if they don't read the foreword and they don't read the preface and they don't read the introduction and then they start at chapter 1 and there's something that they really need, then I'm kind of sad because I gave them what they needed. So if you think people are going to skip it, give it a different name, or just make chapter 1, if it works with your format, be the thing that sets the pace and helps people get into the book, whatever works for you. My favorite tip is that you should draft your front matter early. Don't wait until you get to the layout part. You really want to be thinking about it intentionally. If you need to reach out to somebody to write a foreword, they need some time. And just for a note, foreword is like before word, not forward, like moving forward. It's not spelled the same. I see a lot of authors spell it as forward, like I'm moving forward. It's FOREWORD. So make sure you have that when you're writing that in there, so it doesn't get to print with the wrong thing in there. So whether you're writing your introduction or your preface, it might even help you determine you don't need it when you're writing it. So do that as part of the writing before it goes for editing, and really think intentionally about what's going in the front of the book. Then in the back, we'll talk about that soon. But as you're thinking about it, there are some things that could alternately go in the front or the back. So some people put their acknowledgments in the front and some people put them in the back. So think about that as well. Even endorsements, they might be the very first thing you see, or sometimes they're not right there in the front. So you're planning all of that out and thinking about that. So speaking of endorsements or your forward, why do you do this? Why should we do this? Well, a forward can put someone else's name on the project if they're an expert, and it adds some credibility to what you're doing. So you might be asking somebody to write this because they have this connection with you and they're respected, they're a peer who loves your work, and their name carries more weight than yours maybe. Obviously, if there's not really a lot of context, then it doesn't really matter, but perhaps there's something, they're an expert in the field and their forward for your project is helpful in getting some credibility. The same thing with endorsements. That's why people use endorsements. And so an endorsement is that little blurb in the front of the book that's 2 or 3 lines, just a really short paragraph that might be longer for some people, but it's just a few sentences that say why somebody should read the book. And they're essentially saying, I endorse this author and this content that they wrote. A well-written forward from someone who has credibility in the field then gives that context and authority, I guess, authenticity. I'm trying to think of the word here. So you have to think about why that fits your particular audience, and the endorsements the same way. You have to decide, does this add credibility, or am I just adding some busy work trying to get a bunch of endorsements here? You need to give people some time. And the thing is, when I'm endorsing or writing anything, I want to see the finished work. I don't like to write endorsements for a book I haven't seen. So that's not everybody's policy. In fact, I've had people write endorsements for me who have not seen, other than they've received the full work, but they haven't had time to read the whole thing, and they kind of skim through it. I have also found in the writing world that there are a lot of people who don't read it at all, don't see it at all, and have just said, tell me what it's about, write me a sample, I'll give you my stamp of approval on whatever you want me to say. For that reason, I have chosen not to use endorsements very much at all anymore. And that is because I don't think it adds credibility if the reader thinks this person has read my book and fully endorses, versus somebody who's writing it because they like me as a person and they're willing to put their stamp of approval on my work. Yet the reader might think they actually read the book. And I feel like I want to be completely transparent with the readers. And so if I have somebody who has read the book, I have no problem with an endorsement asking for that. But I've definitely changed my practices on it because I've seen some things happen in the news with people who have endorsed books that they didn't read, and there's something controversial in the book, and then they get in trouble because they endorsed it, but they didn't really read it. So policy is, for me personally, I've said it that I'm not going to reach out for endorsements very often unless I have a really good reason to do that. You get to decide what you want to do. You get to decide whether you want to reach out for endorsements or not, whether you want to have somebody else write the foreword or not. When you're reaching out, though, include an overview of the book, include your intended audience and why you think their voice fits, and make sure you give the cleanest copy you have. It might not be finished editing. If so, I always let people know it's an uncorrected proof or it's the unedited version, unedited manuscript. It's going to get cleaned up. Then they know it's not finished. Because if they open it and see some typos or issues, you could have people say, well, I don't want my name on that, because they don't know that there's still some editing process going. If you have lots of time and your book is pretty much formatted, but you're not going to publish it right away, send them the PDF then. And what I did with one book was I sent a sample chapter or two and then said if they were interested, I would send the whole manuscript for them to review, and then they wrote their blurb. I also had some who said, I don't have time to read the whole thing. tell me what's in here that could be something I might think is controversial or trip over, so that I know what is in here if I'm writing an endorsement. So it just varies on the kind of response. I had some people tell me they were too busy and others say they would gladly do it. Make sure you're allowing them enough time. They're going to need some time if they're going to read the book. Most people I know have a lot of things on their plate and they don't have time to read it within a week, so don't make it that short ever. Just make sure you give them enough time to turn it around. I tracked everything in a spreadsheet, who I sent it to, when, what the response was, made sure I sent a copy of the book and a thank you note when I was done. That comes later, so that's just a little bonus tip for you there. Now, thinking about the back matter. These are the pages that come after the story ends. The section is often overlooked in nonfiction especially, but in fiction as well, because what you want to include there in fiction is something about the author, something about the other books you have, where they can find you on social media to follow you and connect with you. So you want to make sure that there's something there if you're hoping that for subsequent books you'll be able to connect with the reader. There are also some books that have indices, is that how you say it? Notes, like endnotes instead of footnotes, maybe endnotes. Next steps: join my list, read my next book, visit my website. There are some books that have discussion questions in the back for book clubs or for a Bible study, maybe a leader's guide in there. The about the author might be a longer version than what's on the back cover. So the back cover might include a really short blurb and then you have more in here. You might have an appendix that has resources people can find. There are lots of things you can have in the back. A lot of people put their acknowledgments here, so that's a possibility as well. There might be something about membership if your book was something leading to people being able to sign up for some kind of membership. The back matter is really great for marketing. It's a place where you can put whatever you need to connect with the reader outside of the book. So it's great. Don't lose that really great real estate. Use it well. One idea I've actually done in some of the compilations that I've done is I have had the opportunity for authors to promote other work they've done. And on one of those, I actually sold little ad spots where people could have a cover of their book and then a URL for people to connect where to buy that book. So that's another creative way that you can use it. And speaking of hearing other creative ways, I would love to hear from you. So if you go to Indie Author Blueprint on Substack, you can interact with this post and share what you're doing that's different and unusual, or ask for feedback about ideas for your front and back matter as well. I do have a bonus for paid subscribers to Indie Author Blueprint. I have a worksheet that will help you working through what to put in the front, what to put in the back, some notes you can take, some ideas, brainstorming a little bit. So that will be going out by email to paid subscribers so that you have that resource as well. Also, if you're one who's been listening to the podcast and now you want to take that action step, that's a great way to do that. Lots of the content here is free, and then some of those bonus resources are available for paid subscribers, as well as more of the how-to on the publishing process. Some of the videos and things that I've made are things that I share with the clients that I work with, and therefore they're behind the paywall here, just to make that fair to the people who pay me to coach them on those things. So it's like a little coaching course here. You can find things by topic. If this is your first time on Indie Author Blueprint, I encourage you to go to the Substack page and click on Start Here, and that will help you with some of the key posts on the publishing journey. All right, I want to thank you for listening today, and I hope that your draft writing has been going well and that you're soon ready for this next step on your manuscript. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.